All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Opposite of Cheating podcast. This is episode number 46. I am Trisha Bertram-Gallant, one of the co-authors of The Opposite of Cheating, and I'm so excited today to be joined by Soroush Sabbaghan. He's an associate professor at the Workland School of Education at the University of Calgary. He's also been the first Gen AI Educational Leader-in-Residence for their Taylor Institute for Teaching and Learning. And he's the editor of a relatively new book. It was out this year, right? Search,
Correct.
Navigating GenAI in Higher Education, Ethical, Theoretical, and Practical Perspectives. It's so funny in this age of GenAI that time has weird meanings. Right? So I'm like, I'm pretty sure his book just came out this fall, even, but everything feels both like 10 years ago and yesterday and next year. You're
Yes,
experiencing that as
I
well.
absolutely agree. That's very accurate.
So tell us, I gave that brief introduction for you, but give us more sense of what does that mean? What is I know you've been teaching, incorporating AI, but also that leader in residence role. I'd love to hear more about those roles.
Absolutely. So I have a language and mathematics background,
Okay.
and these two worlds they
Mm,
existed in parallel for me, but they were in parallel until generative AI
yeah.
um, came around, and for the first time, I saw a point of connection
Yeah.
between the two fields for me. So it's a comfortable space for me to be in, to teach in, to research in because of that background. I have been using generative AI in my teaching. Of course, I also have a coding background, so I
Right.
develop a lot of applications. I test them with students, and
Mm,
they learn through the process of let's make an app together and see how
right.
it fares. But specifically, there are red lines that I created for myself in this process, and the lines that I've crossed through the
Mm,
process. So, for example, I thought that I would never ever have an AI create a document which I would assign as reading.
mm,
That that is something that I would never do. And yet this summer, because I was teaching a course called Introduction to Generative AI in Education, and there wasn't really a lot of material out there, I had AI generate documents that I read through and vetted.
mm,
But it was a taboo for me. I Before that point, I'd never even considered
mm,
doing something like that. And when I told students that this document is generative AI produced, and I produced it for this purpose, because there wasn't any human research or
right. And you
human
didn't edit
documents.
it or anything like that. It was just,
No.
yeah.
Um, so there was a lot of mixed feelings, and these are teachers that I teach. These are people who are in education system. Um, and I tried to provide a human produced um, document
Mm,
that was around the idea, but it wasn't like laser precise to the topic that we were talking about. And I gave people a choice. Either read the human version or read the
mm,
AI version or read both,
mm.
but with an understanding of, to be transparent, this was AI made, this was human written, here's the why we've created the AI version. And I would say 50-50 every day when I checked with teachers. Some said they liked the human version, and other times they
Ah,
said they liked the AI version. So that's one way.
hmm,
The other way that I thought I would never, ever, it was a huge red line for me, was to have AI assess student work.
mm.
This was a big taboo,
Yeah.
and I thought that I would never do it. And again, in the summer, turns out that you can. but there are, I'm going to put an asterisk there. So in this course that I was teaching, it was an intensive 10-day course. And what I wanted to do, because my teaching philosophy um, kind of revolves around constructivism and constructionism.
Hmm.
So we have a half the class goes to discussing something, and the other half people make stuff. And then they aggregate that experience into whatever um, I'm going to say artifact that they
Yeah.
create. So I had about 25 graduate students in class, and I needed to correct each assignment every day for 10 days. So that's 250.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's just no way I'm going to get around doing that. So I came up with a plan on how I might want to think about doing that. So I created this closed AI system where I would share my screen with an AI
Hmm.
that was able to see whatever I saw. And then I would ask questions about what we were both seeing, the machine and I.
Okay.
I would ask questions like, does this text cover the following content?
Mm.
Does it mention so and so? You know,
Hmm.
things that I would naturally look for
Right.
when I'm reading text. And if the machine said something like, yeah, it did cover it or it didn't cover it, I would have the machine focus on or zoom on the area where it's set or
Right.
give me the line number, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, so then that reduced the grading time
Mm.
from 15, 20 minutes to about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The machine would then transcribe everything that I just said. And then it would produce a feedback based on that dialogue between myself and the
Mm.
machine. And I did this in one of the sessions. We were focusing on assessment live for the students to demonstrate how exactly I was doing it, exactly I was grading their assignments. And that had dual purpose. One was to ensure that there's transparency.
Hmm.
And two, kind of plant the seed of human AI assessment this way is possible. And it's probably preferable compared to just having the machine go through something
Yes.
because I was present and I
Hmm.
was the one asking the questions.
You
It
were
wasn't a
guiding it.
preset.
Hmm.
Yeah. It wasn't a preset set of
Hmm.
questions that I had. Um, and the feedback I read once the machine put it together, and then I sent to students. And there were quirky things inside that made it sound machine-like.
Mm.
But then I explained to the students why it was like that, and we had fun with, have the feedback be in pirate or in different languages
Yeah.
or that kind of thing. It really does open doors. So those are the two big red lines that I crossed
Yeah.
from during the summer in my teaching. There are other ways that I use AI.
Can I ask
Um,
you, I want to ask you a couple
yeah.
follow-up questions though.
Okay, absolutely.
So before the follow-up question, I want to say I want to do a whole episode of where I want to ask people about never ever would I,
Yeah.
and then have people share what they've done. I think I love that. I'm gonna call it taboo became to do. Um,
Yeah. That's very nice.
two questions for you. Did you feel vulnerable in disclosing to the students that you used AI to help you give them feedback? Did it feel risky for you before you did it the first time?
Um, No.
No.
The course is called Introduction to Generative AI
Ah, okay.
in education. So
Okay.
it's expected that you would use it and the whole, if it was a different course,
Yeah.
with a different set of audience. So this is a
Yeah.
group of students who are very, very keen
And you're
on
going to be
using this.
teachers.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
Um,
my other question.
that I would be hesitant, but for this group, I think it was a good match.
Yeah, that was my other question. Do you think your experiments have gone differently because you're working with future teachers versus math, lower division math students or a language student?
Um, it really depends on the type of artifact that the
Mm,
student is creating. So, for example, if they're creating a reflection artifact, where they talk about the
mm,
experience of feeling vulnerable as they use this technology and feeling confident in other areas. This would probably be a good assessment method to use.
okay.
Where in physics or in mathematics, um, I'm not really sure if this would be the appropriate way to use generative AI.
Yeah. Yeah. Context matters, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's when we're talking about teaching and making decisions, the context of your class, how the size of it, the discipline you're teaching, the level of the students that are in it, all make a difference. So tell me more. Thank you for sharing those two things you've done. What about as the resident fellow in residence? What have you been doing for that?
Yeah, so since this was the inaugural role, I could do whatever I want. There was no blueprint
Right.
on how to tackle, but I set this framework for myself, and I said, all right, so I'm going to work on teacher AI literacy.
Okay.
I'm going to focus on student literacy,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm going to tackle assessment. Um, that was the big overall.
Yeah.
So one of the areas that, as I ventured into different faculties and talked to faculty about this technology, a couple of things emerged from that experience.
Mm-hmm.
One is that each faculty in each department has their own culture, and it's that culture is influenced by their
Yeah.
discipline, influenced by how research money is provided,
Yeah.
all that. And because of that culture, they may be early adopters of technology, any
Right.
type, or uh, they might resist that technology.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no one size fits all kind of approach to bringing this technology into the institution. I did notice that we're moving away, like the nature of questions changed from May, I would say, to November. So
Mm-hmm.
very early on, questions were around, let's have a unifying policy around this.
Right.
But in November-ish, I want to say, people understood that you can't have one. It's just impossible to
Yeah.
have one for many, many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So then it became to a question of how would I create a policy, an integrity policy, not just for my class, but for the specific assignment that I am assigning. And alignment between
Mm-hmm.
the course outcome and the assignment now became very clear.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I've been working on is on a generative AI tool that would take your assignment and your course outcome, locate the alignment,
Nice.
and then generate a policy specific for that assignment.
Hmm.
At the university, I developed a framework where you have three different choices. One is AI-free assignments.
Yep.
You can have AI scaffolded assignments or you have AI integrated assignments.
Hmm.
Um, One of the areas that I'm trying to work on the student AI policy
Mm-hmm.
is to help them understand how to use these tools to develop the virtue that the learning outcome is meant for you to learn through doing the process of doing this assignment. And the instructor then decides whether an AI free or AI scaffolded or AI integrated way is the
Mhm.
way to go
Yep.
for students to develop this virtues. In speaking with students, I've learned that transparency is very important for them to for uptake. And transparency in the sense of why am I doing this?
Hmm.
If I'm not allowed to use AI or use AI in a specific way, why?
Hmm.
That's one thing. The
Yep.
other thing is that students are worried that they would use a tool that may have generative AI, but they
Yeah.
might not be aware of it.
Yes.
So they need really structured guidelines on
Mm.
what's appropriate, what's not
Hmm.
appropriate. Or you can use this tool, but you can use it in the following way and
Hmm.
not that way.
Yeah.
So this AI tool that I developed does all of that. It
Okay.
creates this very large table that is student facing
Hmm.
and says, look, you can use this tool, but you can use it this way. You can't use that same tool that way
Mm.
because if you use it that way, it's not going to allow you to develop that virtue that the
Right.
course outline is why you're taking the course in the first place. And the same is true if the instructor decides to go the AI scaffolded way. So you can use ChatGPT to generate, for example, a list of topics, but you can't ask ChatGPT to select a topic for you. So
Right.
it would be very clear in black and white.
Hmm.
And it's not meant to be policing.
Right.
It's meant to
Right.
help students learn how to use AI
Hmm.
appropriately to develop a virtue.
Yeah. And why to use it in certain ways. And yeah. So, yeah, I have a lot of follow-up questions for this, but I think before we get into those, I'll see the light of the coming in the blinds there. Before we get into those, I think we should address talk about academic integrity because I think that helps frame your way of thinking. So, academic integrity, the standard question we ask is when you first remember encountering that idea. And then I would add to that just to give context, like how it now influences the way you approach Gen AI in the classroom. But that can be the follow-up question. So for now, your first memory.
My first memory of academic integrity was in, I'm going to say 2008,
Mm,
2009.
mm-hmm,
Um, and I had, I think, just finished a PhD. I was teaching a graduate course.
mm,
Um, and um, I think I was teaching research methods or something along those lines. And the way you would interpret quantitative data, so I remember this, quantitative data um, became an issue.
mm,
Um, and I remember it became an issue through this data set that I provided, and I had students interpret differently because they had used different statistical means of, and it was quantitative. And at that point, it dawned on me that um, integrity here matters.
mm, mm-hmm.
In a sense, at least. So my first encounter wasn't through the purely through pedagogical means. It was in research.
Yeah.
Um, And I remembered talking about how different statistical means, which were all correct, would give you slightly
Mm,
nuanced results, and that would shape how you would write the discussion and make the conclusion and present it.
yep.
So that's my first memory. Um, I remember that after that, I became a little bit more conscious of it. So it became a concern for me when I was reading assignments or grading.
Hmm.
And it moved into the area of um, are you copy and pasting from
Yeah.
somewhere, from some resource, and things along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, given that, with the big concern, of course, when Gen AI first came out, and I would say is still the main concern of most faculty is students are using it to cheat. And we know that some are, and we know that probably a lot are, and probably every student is on one assignment in a term in a particular class because we cover a whole chapter in our book about why students cheat, right? Because they don't think the course is meaningful, they don't care about the course, they don't like the teacher, they think everybody else is doing it, all those sorts of reasons. I know that you've been very much a part of the academic integrity discussions. Your edited book and talks about the ethics. That symmetry between artificial intelligence, or lack thereof, some would say, artificial intelligence and academic integrity, what have you been thinking about that, and what have you been talking to your peers about that, and helping them sort through this? I don't think the panic is wrong in the sense of it's true, and we do have an obligation to make sure we're actually validating that that student has that knowledge and that skills. I think it's one of the most important things we do and are expected to do as universities and colleges. So, how are you helping faculty negotiate that?
Um, very carefully.
And yourself and yourself
Yeah,
and your student teachers, your
yeah,
future teachers.
yeah. Um, very carefully.
Yeah.
I remember Philip Dawson.
Yeah.
He said that the era of take-home exams are over
Yeah.
because people can use generative AI
Yeah.
and
You can't validate it, you can't police it, you can't. Yeah.
yeah. My I've been thinking about this though. And when it comes, I think that students using these tools to cheat comes down all to all the reasons you just mentioned.
Yeah.
But the most fundamental to me is um, the notion of agency, the notion of
Yeah.
human agency. So I think the way I've been trying to approach this and help people understand is that every time you engage with these systems, you gain something, but you also lose something.
Mm,
Um, and I don't know if students, teachers, university professors, researchers see that collaboration in that light.
mm,
They see it in terms of economic gain, or they see it in terms of efficiency or perhaps
hmm.
proficiency.
Yeah.
But the reality is, every time you engage with these systems, you might gain efficiency, but you might also lose something as a result of that gain,
Yeah.
right? So if a student cheats by offloading onto a machine,
Mm,
cognitively offloading
yeah.
onto a machine, they might get an A. That's your achievement. You
Hmm.
come. But what do you lose?
Yeah.
And I
And that's not
think,
always clear to students. They think
no,
they're not losing anything.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But the reality is you're losing because the machine learns from you.
Yeah.
And every time you interact with a machine, it learns and makes you obsolete.
We're teaching it to replace us, how to replace us. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is, I guess, in education. If you noticed the educational landscape, we have OpenAI partnering with hundreds of thousands of teachers in the States. We have Google Classrooms, we have Google Gemini, and they
Yeah.
try to come into the classrooms.
Yeah.
So
They were going
why
to
would
solve all our
they?
problems.
Yeah. But why would they do this though? And earlier this year, we looked at Khan Academy was developing a tutoring system. And if you just kind of zoom out
Mm-hmm.
and think about it, what would you really need? What was the formula for replacing teachers with machines? Well, you'll need a large language model.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of use this term tutoring or teaching
Yep.
quite loosely. Uh,
Individualized learning.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know about the audience, but
Yeah.
whenever I'm teaching, it's not transactional.
Yeah.
I am constantly looking at for within the students that I have gaps in knowledge
Mm-hmm.
that they have that I need to fill so that they could make sense of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And at least I'm constantly scanning
Yeah.
for what is it that I need to present next
Mm-hmm.
for them to make sense of the world on their own.
Yeah.
This could be mathematics, it could be code, it could be learning theory,
Yeah.
whatever it is. Machines can't do that. Machines can only provide information.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know, and they can't know, currently at least,
Mm.
what the student doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how would you obtain such knowledge? You would take it into the class and you would have teachers and students talk to each other while the machine is listening.
Yeah.
And
And
if
that's
you have
happening. Yeah.
if you have enough content over a lot of time, if you have hundreds of thousands of teachers doing this
Yeah.
in various languages, at some point in the future, you would be able to formulate what the student doesn't know
Mm-hmm.
quite accurately,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yep.
So,
Which is why they keep giving it away for free to
yeah,
educators and to students.
yeah, you
If you're
are
not,
the product.
you are the product. Yeah. Well, we're the trainers as well. Like it's they're giving it away for free, but they're getting free training out of it. It's
Yep,
saving them millions of billions of dollars probably.
yep. So going back to that question
Yeah.
of symmetry or asymmetry,
Yeah.
um, I think anyone who engages with these systems have to have this not understanding
Yes.
that every time you engage with any of these models,
Yeah.
you lose something.
Yeah.
Now, human agency is your capability to make informed decisions,
Mhm.
to act with intention, and to exercise
Yeah.
judgment. You have to uh, train yourself to exert that agency
Yeah.
in your interaction with the machine
Yes.
in order to say, okay, I know I'm losing so and so, but the efficiency, the gains outweigh the loss, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore I'm going to engage. So if you just have that level of awareness every time you engage with the machine,
Mm-hmm.
I think we can create a culture where take-home tests are will be possible.
Mm.
It's about cultural shifts.
Yeah.
It's not about policing individual student behavior.
Mm.
I'm not really sure if I'm pretty confident when I say that's probably not the right way to go. Um, the other thing that I want to mention is that as I stepped into this role and I connected with colleagues that have similar roles
Yeah.
across institutions in Canada,
Yeah.
I've learned that when you zoom out and you look at the system, you'll notice that governments, when it comes to AI at least, probably in some other areas as well, they position universities as talent pipelines
Yes.
or research vessels. Um, I haven't really seen a federal push, at least in Canada, that would recognize universities as learning institutions.
And we're not ranked that way either, right?
So then in the context that we're not really seen as learning institution,
Mm,
this academic integrity debate kind of fades into the background. It
mhm,
functions as surface level regulation of
mhm,
student behavior.
mhm.
Um, and as a result, we see higher education institutions, um, they continue to be reactive
Yes,
rather than proactive when it
yes.
comes to AI. The other part of this is that um, when you look at the way you might get funding,
Mm,
um, there's not a lot of money for teaching and learning and grants when it comes to um, research that is going to create some sort of economic prosperity.
right.
So the money always goes there. If you don't have teaching and learning grants that advocate for a policy that a viewpoint that I just explained, what do you get? What do you lose?
Mhm.
Um, you can't make educational values. And if you can't make educational values more salient, more transparent for students, you're going to have academic integrity issues.
Mhm.
So it's a vicious circle here.
Yeah. Well, and it ties to something we were talking about earlier, and I can't remember if it was before the recording or during, but that it's often the students, we're not transparent with the students about why, and we're about the learning, right? They come to us from a K through 12 system, both in Canada and US, that are very much focused on grades as currency, very much focused on test scores. And so that they come to us trained in a transactional model,
Mm.
unfortunately. And so to get them out of that, we have to provide that countercultural narrative and just kind of talk a lot about learning. And to bring it back to Philip Dawson, we got to make sure that the other thing he says is like if they're cheating on your assessment, forget about the cheating for the moment and fix the darn assessment. We have to make sure that we're facilitating learning that's relevant, not for a talent pipeline, but relevant to regardless of what happens out there, those kind of durable human skills, right? And we have to make sure we're accurately validating that learning. And the problem is, Soroush, that most of us in our PhD programs, most faculty who have PhDs, they were not taught how to design courses. They were not taught how to design valid assessments, right? And so that's, I think, the other reason why we're so reactive is we just don't, many don't have the skill set. And to your point, they're not paid, they're not rewarded for good teaching necessarily.
Yeah, I would add to that what are so a good academic integrity policy? What are the conditions in which a good academic integrity policy can be enacted?
Yeah.
I would say that it presumes stable knowledge.
Mm,
So knowledge that doesn't change month by month.
hmm.
It presumes stable practices,
Mm,
and it also assumes stable assessment norms.
mm.
And before generative AI, we had those sort of
Yeah.
those conditions. I know that in our institution, generative academic integrity policy is reviewed every 5 years,
Mm,
and that seems to be a good amount of time for a policy to be enacted.
yeah.
We'll figure out how the world has changed. What's happening now is we now have an injection of a new type of technology that um, kind it undermines that stability.
Yeah.
Knowledge is not stable because you can access it anywhere, anytime. Different models have different biases, and
Hmm.
teaching practices are not stable. I just talked about how red lines were crossed,
Yeah. Yeah.
and assessment norms have changed
Hmm.
in the sense that, well. cheating or academic misconduct is now more accessible.
It's so much easier. It's actually harder to resist it than to engage in it.
But I do agree that there's a fundamental flaw in that we are too focused on grades
Yeah.
and not enough focused on the actual learning bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I get it, right? Because again, we're in the job of facilitating, validating knowledge and skills. And so, how do you validate it? You got to give some kind of indicator to the world, to the student, to employers and everybody about like to what level of mastery did this student, get to. So, I mean, I understand the value of grades historically and why they're there. Um, and we also know that even if you get rid of grades, people still cheat because people are humans and they're looking for efficiencies on getting something done, even if there's not a grade at the end. So getting rid of grades is not the silver bullet solution either, right? So it is a wicked problem. It's a wicked problem. So let's close out by maybe taking it back to being a bit personal. So you teach courses on Gen AI in education. You're using it quite regularly, it sounds like, and quite thoroughly. You're creating custom bots, you're teaching students how to use it, you're using it for feedback, you're using it for all sorts of things. And yet you recognize that every time you do that, you're losing something. And I love how you live in this gray area because too many people are they're polarizing and they're living in yay AI or no AI. So you're living in this very tense, I think it's tension filled area. How do you reconcile, like, how do you keep your sanity? How do you regulate that for yourself and keep kind of some hope about education in this world of Gen AI?
Um,
You're very measured. At least you're coming across as very measured. Maybe internally you're in turmoil.
uh, yeah, I had a supervisor who once asked. I had a class with this person, and he asked the class what the definition or meaning of a PhD is.
Hmm.
And we all gave our opinion. And he said, and I'll never forget this. And he said, no, a person who has a PhD is a person that can deal with the unknown.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's what this is about. You're
Yes.
doing all of this to gain the skill to be able to deal with the unknown.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm hoping that I've stayed true to that definition of I've gathered all these experiences and expertise and
Yeah.
knowledge and to deal with the unknown. It's normal now. It's not meant. I'm not meant to panic or be in turmoil.
Yeah.
This is my life. This is what I do
Yeah.
every day as an academic. And every day, um, as I read through streams of data, and there's always something new coming out,
Yep.
it adds to that unknown.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that um, living in this unknown gray area, as you eloquently described it, is is what I was always meant to do.
Hmm.
Um,
And and I would hope that we don't just reserve that skill or that mentality for PhD level students. I think humans need that more than ever, that ability to live with some unknowns. I'm thinking about Johari's window, right? The known unknowns, blah, blah, blah. They need to, that's one of those durable human skills, I think, especially in the age of AI. We keep getting told we have to teach our students how to use AI because they're going to need it in 3 years. We don't know what they're going to need in 3 years other than durable human skills. The AI could be totally different. Their job that they're training for could be totally gone. So I'm not buying that they need to know it for a job. To your point earlier, is that it's about learning. It's about learning and it's about, I think, finding the unknowns, living with the unknowns at times, but also being curious enough to try and solve the unknowns when we can, so that we can progress as a society and as humanity. I love that. Thank you so much, Soroush. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for coming on the cast.
Thank you so much for having me. Also, a pleasure talking on, always a pleasure talking to you.